Blake Shoemaker.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
in, buddy. How you
Good to
doing
be back.
today?
Doing well, man. How about you?
I'm wonderful, my friend. I'm wonderful. Just came off a terrible kickball loss.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a tough day today, but that's okay. Had fun, had a few beers, and got to see some good friends. So not terrible,
The real question is, did you come out injury free?
Injury free. There was a few people that left it all out of the line out there. There was a couple slides. Some people got real dirty, You got to have the hard O's. We had some fun with it. Keep it rolling,
Yes.
Keep rolling. So not bad, not bad. How's your bourbon tonight?
Good, man. It's always nice on a Thursday when you're almost at the end of another clinic week. In the last 2 years that have been the little pandemic thing that was supposed to be over by now. But
yeah, remember that?
Well, but it's flu shot season now, so here we are giving flu shots and taking care of people. I've probably given 150 flu shots in the last week. So
just wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, man. I mean, just good that people. I mean, I hate that it took a pandemic to do it, but people are starting to take vaccination a little bit more seriously. As far as like, hey, I might need to get that shot so that I don't end up unable to live.
Yeah,
So,
I don't really want this whole sickness thing. Take a hard pass.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that time of year. But also, it's that time of year. We're at a little sad moment today. Had a sad moment. I really think today might have been the last mow of the year.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's tough, man. As a big fella, I love it when fall comes around. I stop sweating as much, less laundry. There's a lot of good things about summer ending. Football's here, all the good things. But it hurts to see that last mow probably happened today.
I think I'm on the opposite end of that because I hated mowing the yard so much as a chore when I was a teenager that I said the moment I started drawing a paycheck and could afford to never cut my grass again, I would never do it again.
Well,
and I'm sure I may fall back into it at some point because I know that, I mean, when I was cutting grass, it was like an awful non-self-propelled push mower, and not one that you could sit on and have a little drink holder and things like that. But heck, I'm in a townhouse now. I don't even own a yard.
Yeah,
so.
You're out on that guy. Get out of here for that.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, yeah, well, I will say it's kind of sad because you find your rhythm. You might find those corners you finally can get cut real well. You gotta every week you're rolling. That ended today probably. I don't really see a reason to cut it again. There's some spots, you're just like, it's getting too cold. It's getting too cold.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, but we'll get into sports, but it's a tough time for your boy here. I had one of those days. I love this weather. I love this weather so much, but it is sad to end the mowing season. I had my New Balances on. I'm adding those layers of green. So it's getting there. It's getting darker on the bottom. It's my white New Balances are really coming in. My dad's sneakers are top notch right now. Top notch, baby.
Perfect, man. Perfect.
Well, speaking of old man, we play Matt Ryan and the Colts this week.
We do.
Weird week last week. Titans beat the Raiders. Colts beat the Chiefs. And somehow the AFC South, who might have been the worst division in football, beat the best division in football from that kind of standpoint as far as perception. How are you feeling going into this week right now?
This has been I know we're just a few weeks in, but this has been one of the strangest seasons so far in recent memory because normally your players kind of emerge very early and they consistently are out there. And, the Bills look like they weren't going to be stopped. And then boom, they lose to the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. Didn't see that coming. You've got the Chiefs coming in to face the Colts, granted, on the road at Indy. But I mean, my goodness, the line going into that game was Chiefs by 5. And you were just convinced that was just stealing money. And then all of a sudden the Colts win. And the Jags playing at San Diego or Los Angeles. I mean, just beats the Chargers. So it's a very different looking AFC South from what we originally thought. You literally have the Jags leading with 2 wins in the division.
And they look good, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as we all knew that if Trevor Lawrence was going to start, to be the player we thought he could be in the NFL, this was about the time we would start to see it. And I'll be darned if we're not starting to see it a little bit. But I think back to your point about how do we feel about the game this weekend, there's so much unknown. We don't really know who we are. We don't really know who they are, because the team that beat the Chiefs last week is the same team that tied the Houston Texans
Yeah.
and got shut out by Jacksonville. Granted, Jacksonville's better than we thought, but what in the world?
Yeah, and that was a Colts team that had to battle back to get in that Texans game and tie. I mean, the Texans I know are looking a little bit better, but I mean, a little bit better is not great. I
Pretty
mean,
low bar.
it's very low bar. I mean, Davis Mills, come on. I mean, good story. Great story overall. You feel like you got somebody that's at least manageable. If you had talent around him, you'd probably be all right. But like, you could probably say that about every quarterback in the AFC South right now.
That's true.
That's all you need. I was very shocked when I saw the line come out. I didn't know what it would be, but I think a lot of people are gonna overreact, maybe just a tiny bit to the Chiefs win, because when you watch that game, Colts weren't great, but they still won. So who cares? As far as if you don't look great, as long as you get the W, it still counts over the Chiefs. Titans, we know their second half woes are just far from what we're used to. I just don't know, man. So do you think, start out here, how are these Tennessee Titans going to keep this possible 4-game winning streak over the Colts alive?
So I think it's going to come down to two main things. One is pressure on the quarterback. Absolutely. Yep. Pressure on the quarterback. Now, I know that the Titans have had issues of their own as far as like losing personnel on the offensive line, most notably Taylor Lewan for the season. But that said, the Titans have only given up 4 sacks through the first 3 weeks of the season. So taking care of Tannehill, giving him time back there. But we're going to have to get pressure on Matt Ryan. And this may be the chance to get it done. I know that the loss of Bud Dupree last week was a big deal, not getting pressure on the quarterback. But Dupree actually had a full practice yesterday. He was limited today. We don't think it was a step back. We just think it was kind of giving him a little bit of extra rest. So getting Bud Dupree back, I think, would be really big. That Colts offensive line has given up 12 sacks through 3 games.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are there, and that same line is not opening up the holes for their running back like they did last year. Jonathan Taylor's having a lot more trouble than he did last year. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that the Titans, I know that we're a team that likes to run first. You're going to have to start taking some shots down the field to basically open up some of those run lanes. When you look at Indy's defense, they've allowed the 3rd fewest rushing yards per game at 77, and they haven't allowed any back to cross 64 yards so far through 3 games.
Yeah.
Granted, they haven't faced any. I mean, they faced the Chiefs, but the other 2 teams, could skew that average a little bit. But I think the 2 big keys on my end would be for the Titans to get pressure on Matt Ryan and make him make some mistakes downfield. And then you've also got to take some shots downfield yourself to open up those running lanes.
Yeah, because the Titans, weirdly enough, have a very efficient, as far as high numbers go, big plays down the field. The Titans led the NFL last week in 20-plus yard passing plays. Wow. That's something you usually hear from them. But
no,
taking shots, doing good stuff. But you're definitely right. They have to get after Matt Ryan. Last week, it was a tough day for the guy. To be honest, they had, let's see here. What was it? Yeah, 5 quarterback hits. The Chiefs had 5 quarterback hits, 10 pressures, and 3 sacks on Matt Ryan.
Wow.
That's a tough day, man. This is not the offensive line that you are somewhat used to for the Indianapolis Colts. Yes, they got some names, but Quentin Nelson and a bunch of dudes. It's not really working that well. And I believe that this pass rush from the Titans might be able to get a little bit healthier this week with Bud Dupree come back. And dude, Weaver has surprised the hell out of me, to be honest, and has really stepped up. And I think there's going to be just a lot of havoc that they could bring in. And I don't know if you saw, did you happen to see the article that Irsay had about the Titans this week?
I did not.
Okay. So Jim Irsay is pissed that they are losing the Titans this bad, especially since Reggie Wayne got up on the stage at the draft and gave the Titans hell.
He did.
And granted, at the time, I think they won like 19-22 at the time. It was bad. It was ugly.
Yep, it was fair.
4 and 6 cents. So 4 out of 6, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And now Irsay is just livid. He's like, guys, you've got to get your ass in gear. We cannot keep losing to them. He hates them, man. He hates them. And I just don't know if that's going to carry over the team, because there's some newer guys, but they're also just very upset because the Titans have done the thing that the Colts are kind of good at, which is being really physical, and the Titans out physical them. They're bullies, as he described them. It's like, I'm tired of getting bullied. So do you think that Titans kind of do a little bit of bully ball this week, or how do you think we're going to go
I mean,
about this?
I think you got to go after him because Ryan, I mean, he's on up in his career. He's not known to be very mobile. He's no he's no mobile quarterback. He's not even a tanny wheels,
No.
But looking at some of the comments here, my buddy Hugh on the chat says that you agree he must pressure Ryan, one of his weaknesses. And Hugh would know. Hugh is a good friend of mine who lives in Georgia and a big Falcons fan. And I know that there have been some issues there. They wished Matt Ryan well, but there were some issues with holding onto the ball, not being able to get away. So he would know. And then of course our buddy, some guy named Trey.
Tress.
Yeah, nice mustache though. I gotta
Good
say,
mustache. Yeah.
Says feed the king. Absolutely. If you can start opening up those running lanes, by all means. I mean, this could be the breakout game we're looking for the king, because he hasn't been up to his own standards so far, and a lot of that has been we've not been in positions to really lean on him very heavily.
True.
But this could be one of those ground and pound type games, especially if you can put some pressure on the quarterback, build a bit of a lead, and just try to kind of pound him into submission.
Yeah, because they're going to have to bring it this week. This has to be the week the Titans figure it out in the run game. I know last week he got some spark. Henry looked good. He definitely looked more explosive, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the best we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, and it's through the first 2 weeks. It was kind of unexplainable, to be honest, especially for him. I know this offensive line isn't the same. I know Aaron Brewer may be one of the smallest offensive linemen, if not the smallest lineman in the league right now, especially starting. But there's certain things you just expect from a Titans team, and there wasn't a lot of it those first 2 weeks. I mean, mistakes, not being that physical, not running the ball in general too, and just boneheaded stuff, man. Just not playing good, sound defense. There's just so many little things that this Titans team just got away from themselves, their identity, really, And I really saw that first drive. Couldn't you see that old? You saw the dump offs, you saw the slant, you saw the delays, you saw the Henry round and pounds, you saw 8 to 10 yard chunks from him. The tight ends getting involved. That was the prototypical Titans move the ball, just bully you down the field. Didn't it feel good to see that again a little bit?
It did. And, to have a game that largely, I mean, there were still a couple of moments where the play calling was maybe not what I would have done, but it seems like solid recovery from the week prior. As far as knowing what to call in situations that's not overthinking or trying to be too cute. And I know we alluded to it earlier with the injury situation. We did get the latest injury report from both sides earlier today. Burks had not practiced on Wednesday due to an undisclosed illness, but he was a full participant today. So that's great news to get Burks out there. A very physical weapon, going to help you stretch the field. Adani was limited with a neck injury today, but he did do a limited practice. Hooper didn't practice yesterday, but was limited today with a neck. Fulton, I know a lot of people have been watching Fulton, limited on Wednesday, but a full practice today. So moving the right direction. And then again, we mentioned earlier, Dupree, full yesterday, limited today, but mostly for rest. On the not so good news side, Cunningham, Hooker, Nate Davis, and Hollister were non-participants today. Hooker is the second day in a row with a concussion, so I would not expect him to be playing this weekend, more than likely. Cunningham still battling that elbow. And Hollister having some issues with the back. Now, on the Colts side, we had their second injury report of the week, and it looks like this. So Julian Blackman and DeForest Buckner did not practice at all. Blackman is fighting an ankle, and Buckner is still dealing with an elbow. But Stephon Gilmore, Ryan Kelly, Yannick Ngakoue, and Jonathan Taylor were full participants today. I know Jonathan Taylor missed his first practice, I think, of his career yesterday,
Wow.
nursing a bit of a toe injury. So there were kind of some red flags there, but nothing to worry about on the Colts side, at least, as he was a full participant today. Bernard Raymond was limited today, along with their defensive end, Odenigbo, I think it was, and then Shaq Leonard practiced in full for the second straight day. So it looks like most of the factors that you would look at on both sides are going to be healthy. So it doesn't look like there may be much in the way of excuses as far as injuries going into this week.
Yeah, it's going to be two healthy rosters. I really feel like this Titans team has got a lot to prove. This is going to be a big game because it's not a must win. I don't want to be dramatic about it, but I mean, you don't win this game,
you're 1-3.
You're 1-3, and you just lost to a team that's really not very good. I mean, let's be honest. Those first 2 weeks were bad, and the Titans don't look great either. I mean, let's be honest. Like those first 2 weeks, these two teams look like they were the absolute worst in the league at times, and you're like, oh my gosh, dude, what is about to happen? And these were teams coming out of the gate. You're like, well, they're still the Titans. You didn't feel like they made those big roster moves of the offseason, but you always feel like, they got Mike Vrabel. They're going to just make it. They're going to figure it out. They got Derrick Henry.
Aaron Rodgers even said so.
Exactly. See, Aaron Rodgers is talking about us on McAfee's show.
That was one of the best clips that I've seen in a long time.
I mean, when that guy gives you some love, it's worth it, right?
For those who may not have seen it, what we're referring to is Aaron Rodgers was on Pat McAfee's show, and McAfee was trying to bury the Titans this early in the season, and Aaron cut him off and said, they still are coached by Mike Vrabel, right? And there was just silence, and then he goes, just shut up. I cleaned it up a little bit, but Aaron told Pat just to shut up as long as Vrabel was the head coach. So that was a pretty funny moment.
Sidebar here. What have you thought about? Have you watched much of Game Day yet with McAfee?
He's pretty good.
I like it.
It's pretty good. I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but pretty good. I can see his energy and kind of that off the wall, kind of that goofy, relatable as a mega fan of a team. Like he brings some good energy to that show for sure.
That he does. College football, we may get to a little bit here later, but as a Bama fan, you got 3 big weeks coming up, buddy.
We do.
You got 3 stressful weeks. I'll tell you.
It's going to be interesting. I hope, and obviously I'm an Alabama fan and there are rivalries, but there is nothing I would like more than to see Alabama be undefeated and Tennessee still be on their win streak, because that rivalry has needed some fire for quite some time. And I would be overjoyed if we got to that point. I think that would be great.
That'll be sick. I mean, that could be something else for Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord Almighty. God help that place that weekend, because I really think they're going to go down to Baton Rouge and get one against LSU. But anyways, get back to Titans. I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking, what's the one thing that the Colts can do to just make this Titans team kind of like just lose it a little bit? And I think we all know unfortunately it's their best player, Jonathan Taylor, against a rather lackluster run defense. Do you see a way that, do you think this Titans team is just going to stay at home and just hope that Matt Ryan force Matt Ryan to kind of beat them, which, still Matty Ice. How do you think that kind of works out for the Titans?
I am still scratching my head over how the rush defense is so bad. Because you literally returned everybody to the unit except for one starter. And this can't be explained by the loss of simply one starter. It just can't. Because, you had like the second or the third best rushing defense in the league last year. Mm-hmm. And there have been times this year where it looks like they couldn't tackle anything. I think the Colts would be silly to not try to ride their star running back. And until they prove that we can stop him, I think it would be silly for them to try to force anything otherwise. So I would expect a very heavy dose on the ground, just to see what happens there. and not putting it in the air unless they have to. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're smart, if I'm a Colts fan or if I'm the Colts coaching staff, if you've got an elite running back on your sideline like Jonathan Taylor, and you're facing a team that has struggled against the run this year, I'm calling runs until they just make me stop.
Yeah, because you have to just force feed him. And that's the thing is, I'm with you. I don't understand because there's so much, especially up front. And I know you miss Landry, and I think Landry is another very big key in this run game. I think he was much better than people give him credit for, or maybe not look away from credit. I'm just saying it's one of those you don't see it as often. But Landry was so good in the run game, and
Absolutely.
and I will say I think there's times because of how good this pass rush can be. I think there's times where they just get a little overzealous and may just hit those gaps a little too hard. They go a little too far. And they
Over
drag
pursuit.
themselves. It's a definite over pursuit. And let's be honest, between Saquon, I'm not really. I mean, Jacobs had an okay time. I mean, Titans have faced some pretty dadgum good running backs in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to watch, especially because you know how much talent's up front. And he's not the same guy, but Weaver still played really well. So you have somebody that's on the outside that can kind of fill in if Bud Dupree comes back, and still one of those like big question marks of like, did we just give the third best guy on a defense all this money? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that's why that's all the more important that you get Dupree back this week, because if you don't have Dupree out there, you can focus two guys on Simmons.
Yeah,
Simmons is a problem and will continue to be a problem for opposing offenses.
long time.
But if you can double him, I mean, it reminds me of when Albert Haynesworth played. Albert Haynesworth threw two guys at least every snap. But you've got to have somebody else to basically be a threat to kind of divert that level of attention. So I think that's why that's so important that he gets back.
Has to come back.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. I think there's a lot there up front that's got to get worked out. And hopefully this can be the week, because that, like we mentioned earlier, that offensive line for the Colts is not great.
Mm-mm.
So there's going to be times where this defense can take advantage, and they're going to have to against the passing game, because I think the Colts are going to have to. Once again, Titans have scored on their first drive every time, so you're going to get a little press from the Colts as well. I think they're going to have to make them press. But to divert back to the passing game, Caleb Farley.
Oh my gosh,
bro, how bad has this been?
So I really don't know what's going on. He's your first round pick, and I don't know what it is about. I mean, don't get me wrong, John Robinson has been great for this franchise. He took us from a point of being completely irrelevant and mediocre at best to multiple playoff appearances. But it just seems like we're hitting on the late round picks and we're whiffing up front in round one. And I have no idea why this keeps happening. So you have a bad letdown game against the Giants. Then you face the Bills, and life doesn't get easier, and you get embarrassed. It's really bad. Mm-hmm. And Farley looked pretty bad in that game. So you wondered what would happen. So personnel shifting, getting free agents, and then you bring in Terrence Mitchell. So bring in Terrence Mitchell, and you think that he's just going to be depth. Surely he's just going to be depth, because you're Caleb Farley, and you go from thinking you're going to start opposite Christian Fulton to getting beaten out by surprise by McCreary. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm not starting, but I'll be the third DB, when it comes to these schemes. And then he suddenly wasn't this week. You roll with Terrence Mitchell over Caleb Farley when you need an extra DB. That is a sentence I never thought I would say.
Oh my gosh.
In 2022. I mean, Mitchell joined the team's active roster on Wednesday,
bro.
And went on to surrender 6 receptions on 8 targets for 102 yards and a touchdown. And instead of making an in-game change, when it became very obvious to everybody in the stadium and everybody at our watch party that wherever he was on the field, that's where the ball was going, they just kept going with him. Farley didn't see a single defensive snap until Christian Fulton got hurt in the fourth quarter.
That's
Think about that.
incredible.
He has fallen so far out of favor, some way, somehow, that he didn't get to come in the game until Fulton got hurt in the fourth quarter. And then he ended up having 7 snaps on special teams and 1 whole snap on defense. That's it for the whole game. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, they talked to Vrabel earlier this week about why that was, and he gave a typical Vrabel answer about, well, this
Yeah.
is how we prepare, and this is how we scheme, and this is what we thought we would face. And he alluded to there would be some changes, but he didn't say if those changes would include, more Caleb Farley. I mean,
It's going to have to.
what
Mitchell's
do you think?
Mitchell's
What
way
do you-
worse,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah, he's still on the roster. Like, he should be working as a Subway sandwich artist right now. Right
That's it.
now.
I know it's one game. I get that. But you got enough of a sample. You got enough of a sample where he is an absolute liability. And, Fulton is a guy with the way they played him this week. He's got Devontae. Shout out to David here.
It's another one of my friends. Let's
Hey, first time caller, long time listener, David. Colts by 50. I'll hang up and let y'all talk about what I just said.
Oh,
Love
David.
that. Love
Full
that.
disclosure, David lives in Indy, so he's not one of
like him
those.
a little bit.
Yeah, he
Okay.
might care for them a little bit, along
Just
with
a
his
little bit.
Pacers.
Indy, not a terrible city. I actually went there over
No.
the summer.
No, it's really
over the
not.
summer. I stayed at that. There's a place that's pretty close to the stadium. It was an old train station. It's awesome. It's one of the coolest hotels I've ever stayed in, and loved it. Scooted around all the city. Wasn't bad. Wasn't a bad place. Anyways, enough.
Beautiful stadium too.
Oh,
I mean, full disclosure. So,
dude. Yeah. I was waiting for David to show up. Union Station, baby. That's what it is. I couldn't
There it
think of
is.
that name.
Union
Dude, It
Station.
was nice. It was so much fun. So much fun to hang out in there. But yeah, I can't believe that Farley fell off this bad, this early. I mean, I know it's still technically early in the career, but you've seen enough. You're seeing enough where you know that he is not first round talent worthy.
yeah, you expect more from that spot.
Yeah, and hurts. And I know there's a lot of like injuries and there's things, but it's not. You don't have to worry about the back. It was the ACL. It's just so many little things that you're just so frustrated with because you're like, it's another first round burn. It's another first round burn because you're hoping to have a starter that's going to be the stud offensive lineman. Thought you're going to have a stud starting corner, really 2, because Fulton's come along so well. Now, I don't know, he's not dominating, but last week he had to shadow Adams a lot. You kept him under 100 yards, so long ways away from Stephon Diggs on Monday Night Football. But
Just a bit.
I don't know, man. Like, what's your? It's one of those. Do you feel like there's a lot of optimism and hope in secondary at all, or is it just really falling off the wagon compared to what you thought it was going to be?
It's not what I thought it was going to be, but I mean, you've got to be fair and realize that there are some new personnel out there in that package, and it's going to take them some time to gel. But that said, this is the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the learning curve is steep and the expectations are high. And if you don't perform at a high level very quickly, you may find yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the Titans honestly haven't done more in the past week, especially after what we saw out of the secondary this past week, to bring in maybe some more free agents. The only activity we saw this week was them signing a tackle and a linebacker. Definitely need help at linebacker also, but I don't know. Did you see the tweet from Jackrabbit Jenkins during the game? Said
yes,
he was still available and he named his price and everything. And I know I'm not the biggest Jackrabbit Jenkins fan. I was very vocal about that last year, but he is certainly better than what we're throwing out there right now.
Which is tough to say. It is a tough one to come back from.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you would even, people are like, well, maybe, because he had some moments last year that were hurtful to watch. Hurtful.
Now that's a good question there from David. Let's talk about that. So I haven't been able to follow many Titans games so far this season. Has the receiving core been as big of an issue to you guys as perceived in the preseason? What do you feel, Chase?
I was worried It's not been
Mhm.
it's really come along the last 2 games. It's not wonderful. It's one of the it's lower middle class in the NFL. I'll say that. And but it's actually a little bit better because I mean, you see us when you saw Robert Woods catch that slant pass, you're like, oh, you boys got some speed. Boy can play. Burks is really figuring it out. Burks
Physical. Physical.
making progress and good chunks of progress each game. And you feel that you can see the speed, you can see the strength, you can see, yeah, that physicality is numero uno. Like I'm not going there, but you can see at least the AJ comparison. You can see that. Good size body, goes and gets it. Not scared. Not scared of the moment at all. He likes they did the little end around. I know that one of them got called back, but still look good. There's a lot of things they're going to utilize, and they've got some good guys. It's better than I thought. Still not great. Kyle Phillips is still pretty solid.
When
Austin
he's not
Hooper,
returning punts.
yeah, when he's not, get that dude out
Let's
of
not
there.
do that anymore.
I feel like I'm watching Adoree.
Two muff punts in 3 games. So.
Don't you feel like this is watching Adoree Jackson all over again?
Mhm.
Dude,
Mhm.
these 2 guys. I mean, Adoree was out. I was so upset when we took him because me and my buddy JJ were huge Tre'Davious White people. We're like, we're going to get Tre'Davious White. At the time, you saw like Adoree was a good corner in college, but he was a better returner. And you're like, well,
Mhm.
that's great. But Tre'Davious White was a better corner, pretty good returner. And I thought, yeah, that'd be cool to have a returner at the time, but we really need a cornerback.
Yeah.
And you had All-Pro Tre'Davious White go after. Like, dadgummit, dude. And we got Adoree Jackson. Now, Adoree did get the W over Tennessee in week 1, so that kind of sucked. But
Yeah,
but yeah, it's just one of those deals. Like I feel like I'm watching Adoree Jackson all over again. I'm like, dadgummit, I called this dude. They're just not very consistent, and I don't know.
And the thing that's frustrating is that the talent is there. We saw it in the
Yes.
preseason. We've seen a couple of really good returns from him, but you can't turn the ball over. Like, especially in a fair catch situation, you have got to secure that ball. You cannot give the other team free points. I mean, and that's exactly what was happening there. To answer the same question on my end, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I panicked a little bit with the AJ Brown move. Did not see that coming. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I mean, we knew that they were not agreeing on terms, but we all felt like they would work it out. I mean, this front office typically does figure it out, but to find out coming out of commercial during the draft, yeah, he's not on your team anymore, was pretty shocking. And I was panicking a little bit too, but especially with the question mark with Woods coming off an injury and, Burks coming right out of college. There's still a learning curve for Burks. Woods is still kind of getting his feet underneath him, but I think that they've surpassed what I thought. I think the key is going to be that they're going to have to trust those receivers at some point, because teams are going to stack the box to stop Derrick Henry until you prove that they have to do something different. And that's hitting slants, hitting passes down the field. We saw a little bit of it last week, but it's mixing up those play calls, successfully to make sure that it happens.
Yeah. You feel like this is not a group that's going to take over most of the time, right? But just like most of this Titans team, to be honest, like Henry's the only guy that can just take over a game. There's Henry, there's Simmons on the other side. There's nobody else that's just this game wrecker. We don't have this alpha dog mentality from many of our receivers. I mean, Tannehill's solid, but he's another guy with good talent around him. He's a solid quarterback. He's actually a pretty damn good quarterback, but he's not somebody that can just take over. And I think it's the same way with the wide receivers. They're all pretty good. I think Burks has the potential to be very good. I really do. But with anything else, you just need to get a lot of experience. I was listening today. I was actually, funny enough, to go back to like college here, listen to Todd McShay talking about the draft. He said, it's so crazy to watch the difference between the guys that look really good for 1 year. Really good. And they come out, they get this high draft pick. Shout out to Mitch Trubisky. And they play like 12 games. He said it's so crazy to see the difference in how many guys stay in the league that played all 3 years, that really started all 3 years, or started two, played a lot in the first one. You know, a lot of the Georgia, those Alabama guys, they stick around because they get a lot of playing time. And I think that's another thing with Burks. He's just got to get a little bit more playing time in the NFL, and he's going to figure it out. Played a lot in college, and that's why I think he's going to stay. But damn, it's just not a group that's going to take over just yet. But I do think there's a shot this weekend for them to play and really do well. So I guess we'll go ahead and get to it. What's your prediction this weekend?
I mean, these are two teams that are very evenly matched in my mind right now. We're not as good as we thought we would be, but the Colts aren't either by any stretch of the imagination. Granted, they're coming off a big win. You know, on the Titan side, you have people coming back from injury, especially those who could get pressure on the quarterback against a porous offensive line on the Colts. And then on the Colts side, you have it's going to come down to who takes the game over. Is it going to be Jonathan Taylor or is it going to be Derrick Henry? I could see this being very close. The line on this game is just 3.5 points, 3.5 points to the Colts. And, you know, general thinking is you get 3 points being a home team. So in all actuality, on a neutral field, this is a 0.5 point spread. I see this being probably no more than a 3-point game between the two teams. But I would say I think the Titans come out ahead. I mean, the Titans have won 8. I think it was, hang on, let me double check my stats. I don't want to misspeak. I like to be accurate.
Yep. Yep.
So the Titans are going for their 9th consecutive divisional road win. They have won 8 divisional road games in a row, looking for number 9 in Indianapolis. So they've been playing divisional games on the road very well for a couple of seasons. I see the Titans coming out on top in this one. I would call it 27-24.
Ooh, I take that. 27-24. I have a feeling this is going to be kind of a snoozer, to be honest with you. As far as a low-scoring game, I think it's going to be very physical, very tough. I think the Titans keep the streak alive. I think they get after him. I'm going to say a weird one. 23-17 Titans.
Okay.
So we'll come back Monday, and we'll see how that goes. I could be wrong there. Honestly, there's a lot about me that can see the Colts just doing the same thing and winning 23-17. I could see, you know,
it's a coin flip almost.
It really is. I mean, there's so many things that you look at when it comes to both teams. And like we mentioned, there's a lot of strengths that the Colts have when it comes to Jonathan Taylor versus a bad weakness in the Titans, which is a run defense. And I kind of think it's the same way on the other side where the pass rush is going to just tear him apart a few times. And I think the Titans can force a few turnovers this week. And Henry, they're just going to have to play solid through him again and just kind of figure it out. If he has something like he had last week when it comes down to the old like 85 yards and dinks and dunks here and there and get him on a couple screens, because, man, I thought he broke loose on a couple of those, didn't you?
I did.
I was like, oh, you just know, like when he catches it outside, you're like looking for him to turn. You're like, oh boy, there he goes, man. Off to the races, that freaking galloping Clydesdale. So I don't know. I really hope that this Titans team kind of figures some things out this week because they need this win. They really do. Both teams actually need this win. So there's going to be, and if Shaq is back, that's another part of it. Man, that front for the Colts also is going to have probably a pretty damn good day too. Yeah. I hate to say that.
Titans offensive line has got a tall task ahead of them for sure.
Tall task, my friend. Man, really think they're going to miss Lawan. I think it's going to be more than we thought it was going to be. I know he is not graded out as wonderful as we probably have paid him and all those like advanced metrics, but he's still good. Still continuity, you know. It's one of those deals that that's going to hurt, man. It's going to hurt throughout this season. Anything else to add, my buddy?
It's just going to be one heck of a game. I mean, with Titans Colts, it's so good.
It's
like
physical.
one of the best games I've ever gotten to see in person. I haven't been to a ton, but I got to see the Titans host the Colts for Monday Night Football a handful of years ago. And, you know, oh my gosh, it was crazy. The environment and the stadium was packed.
You were there too?
I was there.
That was like my only Monday Night Football game ever. Well, no, I'm sorry. I went to the Bills game too. Yeah, sorry. Last year, Trey Wynn, shout out to that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But that's
that
when I
Colts
was
game.
still living on the Gulf Coast. I was still living in Gulf Shores.
Oh, you
So
journeyed up.
I flew up for that one, and
Worth it.
it was. We had really good seats on the top level, and had a blast. I mean, Titans Colts is always going to be a good game for the most part. The rivalry's there. I know it's been ever so. I mean, it was really one sided for the Colts there for a long time, but the Titans have built some momentum of late, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do on the road.
Yeah. 3.5 spread, right? Is that what it is? Colts favorite? Okay. So if you're betting people and you want to listen to us, I had a tough week last week in Sauna Picks, but that's okay. I wound up doing pretty good in the NFL, so I can't complain. Made a couple $100. We settled in, and we're running it, man. So yeah, if you're a betting man, I think the Titans money line is probably where you need to go. Just play it safe. It could be a 2021 game, just like that. It could be the opposite of the Giants game, something like that. So there you go. Keep running it, buddy. Blake Shoemaker, I appreciate you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Today was a good one. All Titans. We'll talk Vols next week. We got plenty. I don't want to talk Vols with the Bama fan.
That's fine, man. I'm not obnoxious.
I know you're not. I know
most of the time. Now, when the week we play each other, maybe.
Oh yeah, hate fest that week, buddy. That'll be a good one.
I'll break out my Alabama Tennessee jokes. So.
Oh please, you cousin kissers.
No, one of my favorite Tennessee jokes ever. I cannot wait.
You better save that. Even though if you saw anything that El Presidente posted from the Tennessee tailgates and the frat houses this week, Tennessee fans, a little dicey. A little dicey. Go check out Barstool President Dave Portnoy's Instagram after this.
Okay.
If you want to see the worst side of humanity, let's call it that. It's that good. It's that good. Walking around campus. Funny people, they're creative. Just a little aggressive. So
it's been really interesting to watch kind of from the outside looking in the Tennessee fan base, because it's fun to watch the progression of, well, we beat a team, but they weren't that great. Okay, we ran it up on a team that, that we should have run it up on. And then, of course, the what was the road game? Was it Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Did they play Pittsburgh? Mm-hmm. So Pittsburgh, I went on record and said that that's a game that last year I didn't think they win that game. I don't think they have the fortitude to come back and win that game. I think the same thing from this past week. And my best friend, I'm going to throw him under the bus a little bit. Joey, if you're watching this, I'm very sorry. Joey is my best friend from pharmacy school, my best friend in the world. And he is a diehard Tennessee fan. And it has been really hard to talk about football with him these past few years as a Tennessee fan.
Oh, I can imagine.
And they were visiting with us this weekend. And Saturday morning comes and he declares that he is not watching the game. I'm like, you're not watching the game? He's like, I cannot put myself through this again. I swear. Like, I'm not watching a minute of that game because I know what's going to happen. There's no way they're going to win this game. And it was funny as we progressed through the day or whatever, and the game started and we're down at PAX or something. And like, I'm watching on my phone, like in my lap, so that he's not having to see it. And I look over and like, he's on his phone, acting like he's not on his phone. Like,
oh, yes.
I'm like, what are you looking at, Joey? Nothing. And we eventually ended up at the feed to watch the end of the game. And I'm afraid of what would have happened because it was so much closer than it needed to be. When that onside kick happened and they have one last shot at it, I thought I literally got up and left the table. It's like I need to give like a 15-yard blast radius of what might happen if they end up losing this game. But it's been interesting watching the roller coaster of emotions. As an Alabama fan, we've definitely been through it because, I mean, I know a lot of Alabama fans, especially the ones that are not the real fans, that just started pulling for the team when they got good. No, I grew up less than an hour from the university. I suffered through the Mike DeBose years, the Mike Shula years, the whole hour that Mike Price was the coach before he got arrested at a strip club, Dennis Franchione leaving in the middle of the night. I've been around. I've seen some terrible, terrible things.
You've seen it hurt.
It hasn't always been great, so I can empathize with what you guys are going through. But unless we're playing each other, I'm perfectly fine living here and having all of my friends who live here be happy.
There you go. I appreciate that. Because I'll tell you one thing. With this Tennessee team, it was funny. We were sitting there. My girlfriend gets home and the Tennessee Vols are up like what was I guess it was they up 17 at the time, something like that. Florida goes down and scores. She says this line. She's like, "Oh, it's a blowout. It's over." I was like, we all look at her. There's like 4 of us there. And we're like, "Don't you say that? Don't you? You don't know the pain that we've gone through in this game." She said, "Don't you?" She's like, "That's crazy." She doesn't understand the rivalry. She knows a little bit about football now that we teach. We sit down and she has become a fan through the game of watching Thursday Night Football or Monday Night Football. She's just learning. But she doesn't understand the pain that this team has gone through, this fan base, especially with Florida. She's like, "Don't they win a lot?" And I was like, "They win all the time, babe. They win all the time." Them in Alabama, they win all the time. So they go down and score again. And they get that onside kick. And I was like, and I'm sweating. She goes, and we all look at her. And my friends are like, "I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you said that." And we go through that turmoil. And, it's just one of those things. Seeing the Hail Mary a couple of years ago, that point, those quarterbacks, they point and they see it. They see the guy. And I was waiting for AR-15 to send it downfield on a point because I was like, that guy can throw it a country mile. Like that's a flick of the wrist for him to get it down there. And I was like, this is how it's gonna end. And we're gonna get all this. Well, did we let Anthony Richardson take over and the Heisman? I was like, I don't want to hear that crap. I don't want to hear it anymore. But they survived. And that's all that matters. Hendon Hooker is now 3rd or 4th in the Heisman race. It's a wonderful, wonderful start. Hopefully they go down to Baton Rouge and get a W. And me and you are going to be tearing it up on this podcast for Bama Hate Week.
Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great.
Well, Blake, appreciate you. Everybody like, subscribe, 5 stars, share with your friends, all the fun podcast stuff we're supposed to say. This is Chat 10 Sports. I'm Chase Green. This is Blake Shoemaker. Where can they find you at, buddy?
On Twitter at Blake the RX Guy. And hey, if you're here in Chattanooga and you're looking for a great place to watch the game this weekend, if you're not actually going to Indianapolis, some of our friends actually are, and I hate you for it. What can I say? You can join us at Parkway Poorhouse this weekend. We start with a social hour at noon and then ready for the kickoff at 1 o'clock. But join us at Parkway Poorhouse with fun friends, some really good food, some really good drinks. It'll be great.
No, but a good time. Good time. Always the best people. Much love going back to the home base Parkway. So peace out, guys. Appreciate you guys for commenting down here. David, appreciate you, my friend. You have a good one, man. See you.